Okay, everybody, we're going to get started at the top of the hour here. So, welcome to track 2. This is Angular Staff Catalog Tool Update, reviewing the holdings editor again and introducing new record buckets. Our presenters for this presentation are Elizabeth from Noble and Carol from CW Mars. I'm Gina, be moderating, so if you have any questions, you could post your questions in chat or in the QA section. There's also captioning enabled for this. It's recorded and will be posted to our YouTube page after the conference, along with the slides on the website. And lastly, I just want to give a shout out to our champion level sponsors for this event. We weren't able to do this without them. Those are ECDI, Evergreen Collaborative Development Initiative, Midwest Tape, Equinox, Stat Courier, and Unique. Okay, and you should be set to go.
Okay, am I going first? And
yes.
Sorry, I'm having trouble sharing here.
There should be something at the bottom of the screen, at least for me, open share menu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, are you seeing my screen?
Yep, it looks great.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, little, yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to be talking about the new Angular record buckets, which came in with 3.14. Just to remind you, if you don't know, record buckets are a persistent container for a group of bibliographic records. They stay on the system associated with your account until you delete them or transfer them, and transferring them is new. They're useful for multiple purposes, including merging duplicate bib records, batch edit, building carousels, and actually, we often talk about these as a cataloger thing, but I know in my consortium, they're heavily used by library staff, public service staff, who are pulling together a group of records that they want to use for displays and other projects. So they'll pull together things for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and they want to decide what things fit that, and then have a real starting point for displays and things for next year. And the record bucket development happened in 3.14, and it is maybe one of the largest improvements that I have seen in the Evergreen system. So I wanted to show you the old record bucket interface. Now, some of you are still using this, and some of you have already moved to 3.14, but this is what the interface looked like. So you come here to buckets, and you have a single drop down that lists the bucket actions, and it lists all of your buckets alphabetically, but it's alphabetically taking into account case. So if I scroll down, I would find another A to Z list of the ones where I didn't capitalize the first letter. If I wanted to create a new bucket, I would click here. If I wanted to edit or do something else with one of these buckets, I'd select that. We have no idea when these buckets were created or how many items they have, titles, excuse me, they have in them or anything. I actually loved buckets, record buckets in particular, even when we were using this interface. But this is the new interface, and you'll see a lot of changes here. It's a total every aspect of this is different. One thing that catches my eye is the fact that we have the ability to star or favorite or fave certain buckets. You'll see where that really comes in, but it just gives you a way to mark certain things as being a little more important, or maybe they're your current projects that you're working on, or for whatever reason, out of a long list of potential buckets, you want to be able to highlight the ones that you're most likely to be interested in. And the other thing that's very new is that we have filters here, and I'll just show you an example of a filter in a moment. And then we have all of these options up here. So let's look and see. Here's an example of a filter. You've seen these filters in the shelving locations editor and many other places in Evergreen, and continuing to be added to places in Evergreen. So you've got filters here for the number of entries, meaning the number of titles that are in each bucket, when they were created, who's the owner. I'm here filtering on the description, because in my library, and this is sort of my kind of fake library, when we add buckets that are associated with that are intended to be a display, then we would write something in the description that would say, books for the display, the June display in the mezzanine, or whatever. And so anytime I want to find just those buckets, I can filter for anything where the description contains the word display. And you can apply the filter and clear the filter and so on. And these are the bucket actions that you have. You have actions over here that you can just use with the little icon. So from left to right, the little pencil is edit, the little picture is carousel, share is the little person, and X is to delete it. And then you also have oh, that was not where I wanted to be. You also have a drop down that lists all of the possible actions. Now, this is the sharing, and this is very new. Now, we have had shared buckets in a sense. We use the terminology shared in buckets, but sharing in buckets before this development meant that you created a bucket and you told somebody else what the bucket's ID was. And so then they could go into their interface and enter that bucket ID and be in your bucket. If they accidentally transpose 2 digits, they're in some other bucket, including potentially a patron's bucket. So we've never had explicit sharing, and now we do. So I can see that I have shared this with this user, Susan, and that Susan has view permissions. And if I want to add somebody else, I click here and add users and find somebody else. And I get to search through the user database and I find somebody else and say that that person also has view permission for this. And so maybe I want them to just look at it before I make it the official list of something or whatever. And then here we can share with a user and give them edit permissions. So they make it, in effect, you're making them a coordinator, a helper on this. And so here we found a different person, and we want this person to be an active participant and to be able to add and remove things and otherwise edit that bucket. And then you have the option to give libraries view edit permissions. And so I'm saying that I'm being Salem here. I'm saying that Beverly and Gloucester people can also have permissions. This is tricky and not really the way we've thought of necessarily thought of record sharing before. And I highly advise you to check the permissions that you're using in your library or across the consortium for what it means when somebody has permissions that let them do these things, and understand who in other libraries is going to be able to view or edit things. I can add a new bucket. There's a new bucket button right here. So I'm giving my new bucket a title and a description. And one way I can fill that new bucket is by using the upload button. And if I use the upload button, I can import bib IDs or TCNs, and I can import them by using a file. And that file can be either a CSV file or a text file. If it's a CSV file, you have to tell it what column the bib IDs or TCNs, whichever you selected, is going to be in. Or you can paste in a list of TCNs or bib IDs, and when you do any of those things, they will fill your bucket. And you can do that. You have the upload button for any of your existing buckets as well. Bibs for items, we're often looking for working with a file of items because they were created by scanning a group of items into an item bucket. So somebody scanned them in, and these are things that they're going to move into storage or or change or do or whatever. They're putting them on a display. But if you want to see the record IDs for those, if you want to take the record IDs for those and turn that into a record bucket, you can do that because you just make sure that you do download a CSV file from the item bucket, making sure that that record ID is showing, and then you can use upload and set the right column for where the record ID is. And even if you have multiple items for the same bib in the item bucket, it won't make duplicates in the record bucket. So that can be handy. This is a new and excellent part of this. So if you're using Evergreen reports, one of your new output options is to be able to send the record IDs to either a new record bucket or to add them to an existing record bucket. And this works with scheduled reports or individual reports, and that's going to be a great time saver for a lot of people. Now, here's something that is not new. So much has changed. I feel like I also need to highlight things that still work. So here we are in the Angular staff catalog. I've done a search. I'm looking at search results. I have an option here in basket options. Everything that you check off becomes part of your basket. So I have an option here to excuse me, I have an option to add all my search results. So everything, whether it's checked off or not, so all 549 of these, I can add all of those to my basket, or I can just choose the individual ones. And I can, so I've got 11 in my basket now, and I can choose the option to add the basket to a bucket. And that is one way to get things into a bucket. It's handy. I find the add all handy, and sometimes checking things off, going back and forth and choosing things by hand is a good way to get things to a bucket. So that still works. And this also still works. This is when you're actually on a bib record, not in search results. You have the option to add something to a bucket. And in either of those instances, this is what you would get. You would get this pre 3.14 option to choose one of your existing buckets to add your things to, create a new bucket here, or use a shared bucket. And the shared bucket here is is old school, where you type in the number of that and get that. So these are still serviceable bucket related features. But here's a couple of new things, and this one is maybe my favorite thing. I'm looking at these search results. I've got 3 books here that I have checked off. So I've got 3 things in my basket, and I want these to go into one of my projects, which is books about Scotland. So here, where the facets normally are, we have a tab so that you can tab back and forth between facets or buckets. So I've chosen buckets, and so my sidebar shows you my favorite buckets, and it knows which are my favorite because I put a star next to them. And when I just go hover over this one, it creates that little add 3. And if I click on that, I'm adding the 3 things from my basket directly to this bucket, which is a very quick way to make that happen. And even better, the bucket names here are clickable. So I add these, and then I'm thinking, by the way, how is that bucket looking? Is it done, or do I need to add more? Or for whatever reason, I want to see those items within those bibs within the context of my bucket. I can do that. And over here on the right part of the screen, I also have an option to add something to a bucket. It's showing me my favorites over here, and it's also showing me the recent ones, which the bucket tab also did. So I can go here and add things to the bucket. If I didn't choose from the drop down and just clicked on the add to bucket, that would give me that same thing that we saw with the other add buckets options. So I can choose a bucket from my drop down of all my buckets, or add one to a new bucket, or add one to a shared bucket. So all of this makes it much easier to get things from search results and get them kind of much more directly into a bucket than going through the whole basket to bucket system. And here are my bibs in a bucket, which is just a phrase that I really like. And I've selected some, and here are the actions for them. And I think these are pretty much the same actions that you have in the old buckets. So you can move these to a different bucket. You can delete these from the catalog. You can export them. People often export them to get into something like MarcEdit. Merge, um, uh, and add these to a different bucket, remove them, or transfer title holds. So you've got a lot of options here. Merging records has always been something where you had to put the 2 or 3 or however many duplicate records into a bucket, and then you had to go open that bucket and do your merge here. And since merge can be one of your favorite buckets, then all I need to do is choose the 2 things I wanted to merge, come over here and add them to merge, and then click on merge to open the interface. And this is the interface you get when you're merging records. I actually really like this screen because it lets you, it's a very convenient screen for trying to figure out which is the best, which one you want to have be the lead record to be retained. But that process, because of that tab, has really cut down on the number of steps that are needed to do merging. And you can create a carousel. That's one of our actions, and it's one of the icons here. So you just tell it and you give it the name, and then you go to the carousels visible and go ahead and make that live. Now, one thing I noticed when we came to this, I've basically done a batches bucket batches, baskets, buckets presentation at several previous conferences. And one of my favorites was the search query in the record bucket interface, which lets you do really detailed Boolean searching. And I don't know, it always seemed to me like a secret cool place to go do some searching. And I noticed that that wasn't here, and I thought, that's too bad. And then I realized we've got a search box here, and the Boolean stuff always works. So this is my Boolean option, and what I'm looking for is something that has. I'm looking for basically Dutch artists. So I'm saying I want to find something where either paint or painter or painters or painting is the part of that, or the word artist. I don't care which. I just want to get one or the other. And I want either Holland or Netherlands or Dutch to be the second part of that search. So that's a Boolean with an and an or and parentheses and all of that. But it works just fine here. We don't need a separate interface to do something like that. So when I do that search, I've got all the search results. And if all I wanted to do was get them into a bucket, which is how the other old interface worked, then I can just choose the option here to select all and then put that into a bucket. And it's giving me my Boolean search here. So that is something that was lost that I feel like we didn't really need at all. And here's my best advice with this is to go look at the documentation for record buckets. Even if you are familiar with doing record buckets, there's a lot to this, particularly when you get into the transferring buckets and sharing and who has access to view buckets and all of that. So read through the documentation. This is actually excellent documentation for a whole rewrite of record buckets, and also check your permissions and the current practices, the current ways that people are sharing things to get things set up as well as possible. And that is all I have to say about record buckets.
Okay, well, thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, we did have one question in chat, if you
Oh,
don't
okay.
mind. So this one is from Monica. Has the display of the bibs in bucket improved?
Um, the of the bibs and buckets, does it alphabetize? Um, it does not display the bib on multiple lines if it's been added to the record multiple times. The display in terms of alphabetizing by case, I don't think it ever alphabetized them by regardless of case. I mean, it was just using the title that's in there. The list of bibs doesn't have that, retain that the list of buckets doesn't care. It sorts things correctly. Although I think I might want to try that. Oh, okay. That's um, a good hint with the. Oh, I see Stephanie will be talking about sorting and alphabetizing in general, which is great. And thank you for adding that bug, the wish list bug for that. This was a huge piece of development, but of course, we're going to want to take that as a starting point and add to that.
Okay. Anything else on that?
I think we're good.
Okay. So, item alerts, notes, tags, and templates rework. So this is the bug 2074112 that was created to collect all of the different bugs that were in Evergreen Launchpad already for this work. And it went through a lot more testing than we anticipated, but the final product is certainly quite a lot better than what it was. So, Holdings Template Editor. This was part of the work that was done, but you can also see that the legacy template editor is still there if you want to use it for whatever reason. So this is the holding templates view. And instead of the drop-down menu, you can see all of them and you can sort and filter as you wish. You still have your create template in here, import. One of the things you can do is export selected. So if you only want to export certain templates, not all of the templates, you can export selected. But you also have the option just to export all. So that is actually a nice thing if you happen to create a new one and just want to share, one template or, that one that you fixed. You can also, go through and add columns or remove columns, that kind of thing, save. When you select a template to open, it will take you, of course, it will take you to a new window that is the item attributes template editor. And I will note, I'll show you later once you're actually in a specific record and doing it from the holdings editor as opposed to the holdings template editor, this same new item attributes template editor window will appear. But I will show you that later. So I already have a number of templates in here. There is the drop-down menu that you can switch between if you want to. But one thing you might note is that in here you need to clear changes. So applying the template, in some cases, if you just apply the template, it will keep adding. So always clear changes if you're staying in the item attributes template editor to do work on multiple templates. And you can see there's identification over here. They're all in columns as opposed to, let's see, thought I had one open already, but the location information is here. But you can also, make changes to what shelving locations. And I will note that you do need to apply when you're in the templates editor, each field, any changes. If you don't apply, they will not save. This is not the case in the holdings editor itself, but in the holdings template or the item attributes template editor, you do need to apply for each field. But luckily, you don't need to create templates each time you, quite as often as you're creating new items. And you will see that if I apply a different template, you might get some warnings saying you already have this note or you already have this alert. So you can add notes in here public, same as it used to be. Remove, apply changes. Alerts, you can do here as well. And excitingly, item tags. You can click the button in your templates and add a new tag. So very exciting. You can also see when you have required fields that it won't let you do anything until you select those. Some of these we just ignore. So once you have done that, you can either save the template if you're making changes, or you can also add a template. So if you want to change the name, so 2025-14, you'll see that instead of save as template or save template, it is save as new template. So you can still base an new template on an old template. So if you're doing, a bunch of new templates for adult fiction, adult nonfiction, that kind of thing, and most of the fields are going to be the same, then you can still just apply that template for the one you create first, change the name, and then save as new template. And then it will say saved holdings template. And when you go back in here, you should be able to see it automatically added. So that's the holdings templates. And as I said, very excitingly, most importantly, you can actually add tags. So this is just one of the records, and I am going to add the holdings. This is the 315 holdings editor. Now, for those of you who are not on 374, which is what we're on, it won't be quite as much of a change, but it still has changed somewhat. Now, we did hope for some different display issues that we preferred, but with all of the other work that was being done, that didn't make it in, unfortunately, but it still looks a lot better than our old version. So here you can see that the template that I just created is already in the list. You can edit item alerts, and it says no notes. So there are some things that, it will show up here as one new note, one, changed, and that will update each time you make a new alert. So now you've got 2 new alerts. There are changes pending because this is, one barcoded item needed for current change because we're creating an item. Now, one thing in the preferences, I think this is fairly similar to how it looked in well, versions beyond 3.7, where this changed from the defaults where you clicked the ones that you wanted to show, and now you click ones you want to hide. I always use the unified holdings and items attribute display, but you can change that. One thing that I will note, this default item alert type, I have it set for check-in and check-out alert, which is what we use a lot for checking the number of discs in a DVD, Blu-ray, CD audiobook set. But if you had looked, and I will show you again in the holdings, the edit item alert, my default alert does not come up. It's still whatever the first alert is. So that is something that is a bug. And you can still change all of these to hide what you want. So instead of the item templates display, of course, this is 3.7. Yours probably looks different. We now have the administration, and the administration is the holding template. So this is the same as with the holdings template editor. And you can see that it goes to that item attributes template editor. So it's the same as, rather than doing it in here specifically, it takes you to another window or tab to do that. So another thing that you can do, whether it's in the item attributes template editor or when you're adding holdings, you can add tags. Sorry. You can manage tags from here, or you can do it from local administration. So if you wanted to add a new tag, so here we've got book plates, digital book plates, memorial. If you want to add a tag type or a new tag value, so it will allow you to create a new tag right in here. If you edit tag, it will take you to the tag administration screen. Now see, it will show the filters applied will be for your particular library if you're a library. If you remove the filter because you're part of a consortium, you can see your ancestors, then it will show you all of them. So keep that in mind. It won't show you all of the consortial tags available to you if you go from there. The item manage tags or creating a new tag here. So that's the difference between those. So here you can apply your template. You already have this alert. Note, already have a tag map pointing to this tag. So that's one thing that was an issue that was fixed, is that hopefully, one thing that kept coming up is that we were getting multiple duplicate alerts and notes, and that does seem to have been fixed because that was adding up a lot. So create a quick item 3. So now it will allow me to save because I have added the barcode. Hopefully everything else is on here. So you can apply all and save, and it will save. And now you can see it in there. So although this looks a lot different, at least for some of us, again, it is not as different as it will be for some. It is, yes, we have some fields that we hide, or we do hide a lot of the fields, but it's not on a consortial basis. We do allow the libraries and staff to do particular, choose what they want to see. And of course, I keep clicking on administration when I mean to click on preferences, because preferences used to be over here. So that is one thing to get used to. Oh yes, cleaning up and deleting older templates no longer in use. Yes, definitely is a lot easier to do that because you can filter to, so contain CW, apply filter. So then, yes, I can, anything that starts with CW, I can just delete selected, boom. The tags, notes are all in their own group. Yes, that is one of the things that we did ask about, I think both here and also in, and I think that's because I've got that larger. So if I reduce the size, you can see that it's in a column over here. So all those are in a column. It's just because I had enlarged the screen to hopefully make it a little more visible for everyone. But we did like having them, together and separate just so that, well, to make it easier to find them. And I think that is about it. We do have, did, of course, a lot of testing with the template editors, the holdings editor, the holdings view, the item status, capture holds, check-in. It was a lot of testing over a couple of months and then retesting and retesting. So we are quite happy with the final product. Although there is always something to fix because there's always something. Those tech gremlins will get in there like the default alert. So I think that's it for me. Does anyone have questions that I have not missed? I wish we could hide the same fields in the templates as we do the holdings editor. Yeah. Is there an option under cataloging to go right to the template editor? You mean under the cataloging menu here? No, you either go under administration, local administration, holdings template editor, or again, you have to go through here. And the preferences being in the holdings editor only is one of those things that bugs me a lot. I would think it would be under administration, but it's not. Maybe someday. Add that to the wish list bugs. Yes, and we do appreciate all the work that ECDI and, including Stephanie, to work on this, because they did a lot of work. We had a lot of feedback for them through the testing process. I'd like to centrally hide fields in the holdings editor for all our catalogers. It could make more sense under cataloging. It just bothers me that it is, the only way to get to those preferences is through the holding. You have to go to a, title, a bib record, to make those changes, update those preferences. And I'm sorry if you could hear that truck passing by. Yes, deposit amount. When I'm doing cataloging training, there is a lot of, we go step by step to say, okay, do you ever ask them to put down a deposit? No, hide that. And then, having to explain the difference between price and cost, quality. I didn't hide those as I normally do, just to show you. Now, one thing, cost and condition. So I hid everything that's in that column. And the column stays. That might be something nice for a wish list item, to be able to hide that if everything else is hidden. So you could hide a column as well as, things from a particular column. But again, wish list. Any more questions for Elizabeth either? Buckets. We still have a couple minutes. Have you noticed slowness with the buckets if you're opening up all of them? Oh, could you show what the bucket looks like again with the list of items? I don't know that I have one available, but let's see. Cataloging. So this is the record bucket. I don't know that I have an item bucket. So you can select, well, a lot of columns to choose in the items. Is that what you're referring to in the record bucket? Okay, we'll go back to the record bucket. So if you go here, you can see Bucket ID entry, date added to bucket. ISSN is active or deleted, last edit, merge date, record creation date time. Yeah. So you can just add the columns here, or you can go to the manage columns and go through the list and move them to how you want them. Just, remember to save. And you can actually grab these and move them around. So if you decide, oh, I want that to be at the top. And you can set, a minimum field size or column size. It might depend on your version too. There was a fix in 3.14 that added ISBN, pub date, and some others. Yeah, so like I said, I'm on 3.15 on this development server.
And it's always worth time rearranging columns and getting the widths right and so on, so that you can get the most useful view of things. I love rearranging columns and
Yes,
adjusting them
and managing action menu items.
Yeah.
Especially in the cataloging or the holdings view.
Yeah, the managing the actions is similar to hiding things on the. It's another way to hide things from the screen. Like if you're not going to use it, if it's not really a thing, then don't show it to me.
That's right. Okay, well, we're at 1:51. Gina, is there anything you need to?
I don't think so. Thanks for asking. Thanks for also moderating the chat. It's always nice when we have a couple of presenters going. So I guess the only thing I have to really say is that we're going to be coming up on a break soon.